9 ugly things seniors do as they age that no one tells you. Hey there, I want to talk to you about something real today. Aging. Yeah, it's one of those things we all know is coming, but somehow no one really gives us the full picture. We're all told that getting old is a privilege, or that the golden years are filled with relaxation and enjoyment. But let me tell you, that's not always the case. As someone who's had the chance to watch loved ones age, some gracefully, others not so much, I've come to realize that aging comes with its own set of struggles. The things that no one tells you. The things that hit you when you least expect it. The stuff that's ugly, painful, and uncomfortable to talk about. But that's exactly why we need to talk about it. So here's the truth. There are parts of growing old that no one prepares you for. And it's time we acknowledge those ugly truths. From losing your memory to watching your body slowly betray you, there's a lot more to aging than just the occasional wrinkle. It's tough, it's emotional, and it's messy. But that doesn't mean it's not important to understand. I'm about to share with you the 9 ugly things seniors do as they age, things that most people won't tell you. These aren't just facts you find in a textbook or hear in a medical lecture. These are raw, real moments, some of which may even hit too close to home. But that's okay, because the more we talk about this stuff, the more we can prepare for it, and maybe even support the seniors in our lives a little better. Ready? Let's get into it. 1. The physical decline. No one warns you about. All right, let's start with something that hits home for a lot of people. The physical decline. When we think about aging, we often imagine gray hair, or maybe a few wrinkles here and there. But what people don't always talk about is the fact that your body, your very foundation, starts to fall apart in ways you didn't expect. And it's not just about getting older, it's about the things you physically lose. Think about it. Your joints start to hurt for no reason. You can't bend over to tie your shoes without feeling like you're going to break something. Maybe your knees give out when you're walking, or your back feels like a 100-pound weight has been strapped to it. These little things pile up until it starts to feel like your body is just betraying you. I'll be real here. I've watched it happen to people close to me. I remember when my grandmother, who used to be so active and independent, couldn't even walk across the room without getting winded or needing assistance. Her knees would crack and pop like they were made of old wood. And I saw the frustration in her eyes, the kind of frustration that comes from realizing that your body is no longer your own. It's like you're trapped in a body that refuses to keep up with your mind. But here's the thing. This is a part of aging, and we don't talk about it enough. The slow loss of muscle strength, the aches that won't go away, the exhaustion that sets in for no reason. We're all guilty of thinking that the older generation just needs to rest more, or that their aches and pains are exaggerated. But when it's happening to you, you realize how much of your independence is tied to your body's health. Takeaway. Take care of your body while you can. Aging sneaks up on you. The strength you have today might not be there tomorrow, and if you're not paying attention, you'll miss the small warning signs until it's too late. 2. Memory loss and mental decline. All right, let's talk about the mind. This one hits differently because it's not just physical, it's mental. As we age, many of us will start to experience memory loss. Things like forgetting names, forgetting why we walked into a room, or not being able to remember important details that we should have known. And for some, it gets worse. Much worse. I've seen this happen too. I had an uncle who could tell the same story over and over again, with the same enthusiasm, and yet he didn't remember that he told it the first time. It was heartbreaking. And the toughest part was not just seeing him forget things, but the sadness and frustration in his eyes when he realized it. He knew something was off, but he couldn't pinpoint what. Forgetfulness becomes a way of life. It's more than just misplacing your car keys or forgetting a date. It's the feeling of losing control over your own memories, over your own past. And for seniors, this can lead to confusion, isolation, and even depression. We can joke about senior moments, but there's a deep sadness behind those lost moments. The real kicker? Some people don't realize the extent of their own memory decline until it's already too late. They'll forget important things, forget the names of their loved ones, and sometimes even forget who they are. This mental decline can be much harder to witness than physical decline, because when your mind starts slipping, it's like the very essence of who you are is slipping away. Takeaway: mental health matters too. We need to take care of our minds just as much as we take care of our bodies. Engaging in mental exercises, staying socially connected, and even seeking professional help when things get tough can make all the difference. Your mind is just as important as your body. Don't neglect it. 3. Emotional instability. Now, let's dive into something that isn't talked about nearly enough: the emotional roller coaster that many seniors experience as they age. Aging isn't just about physical changes or losing your memory. It's also about the emotional shifts that occur when you start to realize that your life is changing in ways you never imagined. And it's not always pretty. As people get older, their emotions often become more intense. For some, this means heightened sadness, anxiety, or frustration. For others, it can lead to feelings of anger, confusion, or even paranoia. The funny thing is, it's not like these emotions are entirely new. They're just amplified. And sometimes, these emotional shifts seem to come out of nowhere. I've seen this in my own family. A close relative who was always calm and collected suddenly became irritable over the smallest things. She'd snap at us for no reason, or cry at the drop of a hat. It was confusing for everyone around her because we didn't understand why this was happening. But when you think about it, it makes sense. Aging comes with a deep sense of loss of independence, loss of loved ones, and sometimes a sense of not being needed anymore. And that can trigger some pretty powerful emotions. This emotional instability isn't just a symptom of aging. It's a response to the many challenges that come with getting older. When your life starts to slow down, when you can't do the things you once could, when you're faced with the reality of your own mortality, it's normal to feel a little shaken up. But that doesn't make it any less difficult to handle. Takeaway: be patient with the elderly in your life. Their emotional swings aren't necessarily a reflection of their personality, but rather a reaction to the changes they're facing. And if you're the one aging, don't be afraid to talk about how you're feeling. Mental health is just as important as physical health, and emotions are a big part of that. 4. Isolation and loneliness. This one is huge, and I think it's the most heartbreaking thing about aging. You don't realize how much isolation and loneliness can affect someone until you see it up close. For seniors, loneliness is a real epidemic. As they age, many of their friends and family members pass away, and the reality of being alone sets in. It's not just about being physically alone in a room. It's the emotional isolation that cuts deep. There's a family friend of ours, an elderly woman who spent most of her time alone after her husband passed. Her kids lived far away, and even though she had family nearby, they were always busy. I remember visiting her one day and hearing her say, "I don't want to bother anyone. I'm fine on my own." But deep down, we all knew she wasn't fine. She was lonely, and it was eating away at her spirit. She would sit by the window every day, watching the world go by, wishing someone would come visit her. But often, no one did. The hardest part. She didn't want to ask for help. She didn't want to be a burden to anyone. And that's something I see often with elderly people. They don't want to admit how lonely they are, because they don't want to inconvenience others. And so they suffer in silence, often waiting for a knock on the door or a phone call that never comes. Loneliness doesn't just affect the elderly emotionally, it affects them physically too. Studies show that chronic loneliness can increase the risk of heart disease, depression, and cognitive decline. It's more than just feeling sad. It can lead to serious health problems. Takeaway: if you have elderly people in your life, don't let them feel forgotten. It's easy to get caught up in our own busy lives, but sometimes a simple phone call or a visit can make all the difference. And if you're the one feeling lonely, reach out. You don't have to go through it alone. 5. The loss of purpose. All right, this one really hits home for a lot of seniors, and honestly, it's something we don't think about until it's too late. When you're working, taking care of a family, or even running your own business, life is busy, and there's a sense of purpose. You know what you're doing, you know why you're doing it, and every day feels like it has a reason. But when you retire, when the kids leave the nest, when life starts to slow down, suddenly, that sense of purpose isn't as clear anymore. And that can be one of the hardest things for seniors to deal with. I saw this firsthand with my grandfather. For decades, he was a hard-working man. He had a job he loved, and after work, he had his family to take care of. But after he retired, he found himself staring at the walls, unsure of what to do with all that free time. The things that once gave his life meaning, his work, his projects, his routine, suddenly disappeared. And without those things, he started feeling like he had no reason to get out of bed in the morning. At first it was subtle. He would do things like rearrange the furniture or go for long walks just to pass the time. But slowly, those things stopped being enough. He began feeling more and more lost, like a part of him was missing. It wasn't just about getting older. It was about the loss of a life's purpose. And here's the thing. Many seniors never find a new purpose. They don't always know how to transition from being a provider, a worker, a caretaker, to being someone who's just retired. And that loss of identity is something we often overlook when talking about aging. Takeaway: purpose doesn't have to come from work. As we age, we need to redefine what gives our lives meaning. Whether it's picking up new hobbies, volunteering, or just spending more time with loved ones, it's important to find something that makes us feel valued and connected. Purpose keeps the spirit alive, and it doesn't have to end when the workday does. 6. Financial struggles in later life. Now, let's talk about something that's all too real and way too common: the financial struggle in later life. The thing is, a lot of us don't think about our financial future until it's almost too late. We save for retirement, sure, but we often don't save enough. And when we get older, we realize that we don't have the same earning power we once did. And for many seniors, that can mean a life of financial stress, no matter how hard they worked in their earlier years. I've seen this happen in my own family. A relative of mine worked for years, lived modestly, and was careful with money. But when they hit retirement age, they found that their savings just didn't stretch as far as they thought it would. The cost of healthcare, living expenses, and even basic things like groceries became harder to manage on a fixed income. And the worst part? There's no real safety net. If you don't have a pension, or if your Social Security isn't enough to cover your basic needs, you're left scrambling. The unfortunate truth is that many seniors face a financial crisis in their later years. And it's not just about having enough to live on. It's about the fear of running out of money, of being unable to afford the care they need, or of not being able to leave a legacy for their children or grandchildren. Takeaway: financial planning should start as early as possible. It's never too soon to think about how you'll manage your finances in later years. If you're already older and facing financial difficulties, don't be afraid to ask for help. There are resources out there, financial advisors, community programs, and government assistance that can make things a little easier. 7. The loss of mobility. One of the most difficult things to watch as someone ages is the gradual loss of mobility. You see, when you're young, you take movement for granted. You don't realize how much you rely on your body until it starts to fail you. And for many seniors, the loss of physical abilities is one of the hardest parts of getting older. I've seen this happen to so many people in my life. I remember my grandmother, who used to run and play with us, slowly becoming unable to climb the stairs. At first, it was just a little hard to keep up with the grandkids, but over time, she started using a walker, then a wheelchair. It wasn't just frustrating for her, it was heartbreaking. She loved to dance, to walk through the park, to get out and about. But as her body aged, she found herself confined to a chair, watching others live the life she used to enjoy. And the worst part is, it's not just about the physical limitations. It's the emotional toll that comes with it. Losing mobility means losing your independence. It means having to rely on others for things you once did yourself. And as much as people may try to help, it's never the same. Some seniors end up staying home more, avoiding social activities, and retreating into their own world because moving around just feels like too much work. The sadness of being trapped inside your own body, unable to do the things you once loved, can sometimes feel overwhelming. Takeaway: if you're lucky enough to still have your mobility, take care of it. Stay active, stretch, and do what you can to maintain your strength and flexibility. And if you're an older adult, don't let the loss of mobility define you. Seek out exercises or therapies that can help you stay as mobile as possible. And remember, it's okay to ask for help when you need it. 8. The loss of control over their own lives. One of the most painful things to witness as someone ages is the gradual loss of control over their own life. Think about it. When you're young, you have the freedom to make choices about your day, your finances, your career, your future. You decide where to go, what to do, and when to do it. But as we age, more and more of those decisions are taken away, whether by necessity, health problems, or simply the reality of needing help. I remember when my aunt, who had been fiercely independent her whole life, needed to move into an assisted living facility. It wasn't her choice. It was a necessity. She was no longer able to live alone, and she had to give up the home she'd lived in for decades. The move was heart-wrenching for her. She felt like she was losing everything: her independence, her privacy, her ability to make decisions. It was as if she was being forced to hand over control of her life to others. And it's not just about moving into a facility. It's about the small, everyday things. Things like not being able to drive anymore, needing help with personal care, or relying on others to make sure bills get paid. For many seniors, the inability to take care of themselves is a constant reminder of their diminishing autonomy. Takeaway: if you have elderly loved ones, make sure they have a say in their care and decisions, even if it's difficult. The loss of control is one of the most painful aspects of aging, and maintaining some semblance of autonomy can help preserve their dignity. And if you're aging yourself, don't be afraid to talk about how you want to live, even when you need help. 9. The physical and emotional burden on family members. All right, here it is, the final truth that we all need to understand about aging. As much as aging affects the person growing older, it also deeply impacts the people around them. The physical and emotional burden that seniors place on their family members can be heavy, often in ways that are invisible to the outside world. Let me tell you, being a caregiver for an elderly loved one is no easy feat. It requires patience, empathy, and a lot of emotional and physical energy. I've seen family members, parents, children, spouses, all stretch themselves thin, trying to provide care, support, and love to seniors who need it. But the truth is, caregiving can take a serious toll on the caregiver too. It's not just about making sure someone eats their meals or gets to their doctor's appointments. It's about constantly being there for them, emotionally and physically, while balancing your own life. I remember my cousin, who became the primary caregiver for her mother. She had a full-time job, a family of her own, and yet, her mother's needs became her entire focus. She would take her mom to doctor visits, help her with household chores, make sure she was comfortable, and all the while she was juggling everything else. It was exhausting. There were days when my cousin was on the brink of burnout, emotionally drained and physically tired, yet she couldn't step away. The guilt of not being enough was overwhelming. She had her own family to take care of, but her mother needed her, and my cousin couldn't say no. It's not just the physical exhaustion. It's the emotional burden. Watching a parent or a loved one lose their independence, decline in health, and struggle with their emotions can bring up feelings of guilt, sadness, and helplessness. The weight of responsibility can feel suffocating, especially when you want to help but don't always know how. But here's the thing. We often don't talk about the toll caregiving takes on those giving the care. The truth is, being a caregiver isn't always appreciated in the way it should be. It's a job that comes with love, yes, but also with frustration, exhaustion, and sometimes resentment. And that's okay. It doesn't make you a bad person to feel overwhelmed by it all. Takeaway. If you're a caregiver, don't forget to take care of yourself too. It's easy to get lost in the needs of others, but you can't pour from an empty cup. Take breaks when you need them. Ask for help when you're struggling. And if you're someone who has an elderly loved one, don't take their caregivers for granted. They're doing an incredibly difficult job, and they need your support too. The physical and emotional burden of caregiving is real, and it's something we all need to recognize. Conclusion. As we come to the end of this conversation, I want to leave you with one final thought. Aging isn't just a natural process. It's a deeply human experience, full of complexities and challenges that deserve our understanding and respect. It's easy to overlook the tough parts of aging because, let's face it, they're uncomfortable to talk about. But the truth is, facing these difficult truths is not only important, it's necessary for all of us to navigate life with empathy and compassion. The 9 ugly things we've talked about today, the physical decline, the mental struggles, the emotional instability, the loneliness, the loss of purpose, the financial worries, the mobility challenges, the loss of control, and the burden on caregivers. These are not isolated experiences. They're universal. They happen to people we know, people we love, and maybe even to ourselves. And it's so crucial that we not only acknowledge them, but that we take action, to show up for the seniors in our lives, to listen to their struggles, to help in whatever way we can, and to prepare ourselves for the inevitable. So, what can we do? First, let's be kinder to our elderly loved ones, to ourselves, and to those who care for them. Aging can be a slow, painful process, but it doesn't have to be faced alone. Whether it's through small acts of kindness, regular check-ins, or simply offering an understanding ear, we have the power to make aging a little more bearable for everyone around us. If you're in the position of caring for someone who's aging, remember, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. You don't have to carry that burden alone. And if you're the one aging, don't shy away from sharing your struggles. Speak up, seek support, and know that there's no shame in feeling vulnerable. Most importantly, let's change the conversation around aging. Let's stop pretending that it's all sunshine and rainbows. It's not. But that doesn't mean it can't be meaningful, impactful, and filled with love. It just takes us, all of us, to show up for each other, to be present, and to treat aging with the dignity and respect it deserves. Thank you for being part of this conversation. I hope this has sparked something in you. Whether it's a desire to show more compassion to the seniors in your life, to care for yourself as you age, or just to start thinking more deeply about this inevitable part of life. Because in the end, we're all going to get there one day. And when we do, we'll want the people around us to show up with love, understanding, and empathy. Let's make aging something we face with courage, grace, and most of all, together.